am a philosophy graduate from the University of Birmingham, and I am a teacher of religious studies in Lichfield, England.
I'm a medical student and a former journalist. I love learning about human nature from different disciplines, and one of these disciplines, maybe at the very heart of them, is religion, and so I love religion.
My name is Inas Hamdan, and I'm a journalist and anti-honor culture activist from Sweden.
I've worked in the domestic abuse and sexual violence sector for almost a decade. I've also specialised in honour crimes, forced marriage, FGM, and various other harmful traditional practices.
My name is Khadija Khan. I'm a journalist and commentator. I write about minorities, women's rights, extremism, and Islamism.
I grew up in South Wales in a predominantly white, lower middle class area. Personally, I've never felt excluded because of my Muslim or Pakistani heritage. In fact, it's been the complete opposite. I've always felt welcomed and encouraged.
I grew up in a community that was separatist. For those of us that wanted to integrate or did integrate into the main or adopted Western lifestyles, we were viewed as traitors, sometimes harmed for our decisions, other times disowned.
I grew up in a close-knit Muslim community. I was at a Muslim school from between when I was about 7 years old to about 14. I'm still part of this community and I love it.
I grew up in a conservative Pakistani society, and this has been an interesting experience for me to live in different European countries such as Germany, France, Belgium, and Britain. I don't find myself being excluded from the mainstream society because I am a humanist and I believe in human rights for everyone. An influential and vocal minority group of self-proclaimed saviors of Muslim communities has dominated the mainstream narrative.
Islam is not a monolithic religion and is highly unlikely to ever become a monolithic and a unified religion.
Some are ultra-conservative and some are progressive and supportive of democratic values.
Does everybody in your household think the same? Do all of your peers think the same? Does everybody in your ethnic group think the same?
The idea that Muslims think the same empowers bigots who see all Muslims as extremists that hate the West.
I don't feel that any Muslim spokesperson speaks for me, in part because I'm no longer a Muslim.
Islam isn't as much about the spirit anymore, not in America. It isn't about nights lost in reflection and about pondering over old texts and in the worship or even the poetry and music of the Sufis. Islam in America is about watching Hassan Minhaj and Trevor Noah and Lily Singh and following these celebrity Muslim politicians. It's about being woke and attending all the right protests. It's about bending over backwards to pretend to yourself and to the West that Islam is the true progressive and anti-racist religion and how great it is for women.
The term Islamophobia is a widely misused term that both harms people who are oppressed by Islam and Muslims who are oppressed.
What is the difference between an Islamophobe and a critic of Islam?
The criticism of somebody's ideas is not the same as criticizing or attacking that person. Members of the identitarian left that have interactions with anybody who disagrees with them often resort to personal attacks. Therefore, it makes sense that they think that a criticism of Islam is an attack on a person.
The issue that I have with the term Islamophobia is that it's a form of censorship. It prevents people from questioning Islam.
The reason for that is that it has become a blanket term for all criticism against Islam.
So I find the term really strange. We don't see it in any other religion or ideology.
The constant misuse of this term Islamophobia has made its authenticity irrelevant while reducing it to a tool to silence and censor unwanted and opposing views.
When I hear the term Islamophobia, I feel exhausted. My work has been made difficult over the last half a decade by this term, not just within the community. That is often expected. However, from those that politically I expect to champion universal principles by making it difficult to challenge ideas within Islam and within the community that practices the faith.
Mostly people who want to protect regressive and ultra-conservative mores and political aspect Islamism from scrutiny. They use this term to silence its critics.
I feel the first people that it affects is definitely the academics, the thinkers, and the students. Second of all, it definitely affects those who do suffer from Islam. So, for example, your ex-Muslims or those who are trying to escape human rights abuses because related to Islamic laws.
The worst victims of it are women and girls within that community, the vulnerable members of that community that are trying really hard to live their life according to the principles of Islam, but also wanting to modernize their faith.
I think it would be good for Islam, and I see this as someone who loves Islam and wants to see Islam leave the cave and be able to engage in modern discourse in this century.
People who are oppressed by Muslim extremists realize that they can't speak out about their oppression. In fear of generalizing and painting all Muslims as oppressors or bigots, those victims are made to either stay silent or not mention Islam when speaking about their oppression.
People who criticize Islamist ideology while putting their own lives at risk, they suffered the most. Because it's not only Islamists and their apologists anymore who try to shut down this debate around Islamism. Sadly, so-called liberals use the same language to reprimand dissenting voices calling out this vile ideology.
Those that believe that you shouldn't question Islam have a very naive understanding of how humans and societies have evolved.
Ideas don't have rights, people do.
And these lines have been muddied intentionally by those that want to protect Islam from any criticism or any scrutiny.
I cherish my association with my family, friends, and people from the community, but I don't want to be treated as brown woman of a Muslim heritage from minority background.
I only represent myself, and I feel more comfortable that way. In that way, I don't have to carry the cultural baggage that comes with the community. I can just be myself. For me, it's probably the happiness and honor of my family that is at stake if I was to freely live the life that I want to. It's cost a lot in terms of the relationships that I now have with certain people, simply because not everyone agrees with the idea that I get to choose and live how I wish.
Fortunately, I live my life the way I want to live. Perhaps that's the reason why I don't find myself being welcomed in the community, where people judge you for not being Muslim enough or not complying with the set standards of what it is to be a modest woman.
I'm an individual first, and if I'm part of any community, then that is the community that I've chosen, the family that I've chosen.
Don't divide us.
Don't divide us.
Don't divide us.
Don't divide us.
Don't divide us.